Every day, millions of people wake up feeling trapped. They put on masks, follow rules they never questioned, chase goals they never chose, and live lives that don't reflect who they truly are. It's no surprise that depression, anxiety, and a profound sense of emptiness have become the signature diseases of our modern age. But what if the source of this emptiness isn't what we typically imagine? What if our suffering comes not from failing to fit in, but from never having discovered who we truly are in the first place? Friedrich Nietzsche, one of history's most misunderstood philosophers, discovered something profound about human nature. The greatest pain isn't physical suffering, but the emptiness that comes from living as someone you're not. He uncovered why so many people feel hollow, despite having everything society told them would bring happiness. The more we conform to external expectations, the more we suffocate our authentic selves. And the cost of this self-betrayal is our sanity, our fulfillment, and ultimately our lives. Throughout history, we've been conditioned to believe a comforting lie, that if we just follow the rules, work hard, and meet external expectations, we'll find happiness. Religions promise salvation through obedience. Society promises success through conformity. Parents, teachers, and leaders all reinforce this message. Be good, fit in, follow the path. The pattern repeats across civilizations and centuries, but the evidence tells a different story. Look at the successful people you know. How many are genuinely fulfilled? How many wake up excited rather than anxious? How many feel truly alive rather than just busy? The statistics are clear. Rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide continue rising despite unprecedented material wealth. Why? Because material success without authentic self-expression is meaningless. External achievement without internal alignment is hollow. The modern crisis isn't economic, it's existential. When Nietzsche famously declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating atheism. He was sounding an alarm about something far more devastating: the collapse of all external sources of meaning and morality. For centuries, religious frameworks had given people purpose and direction, but as faith declined, nothing substantial replaced it. Into this void rushed what Nietzsche called the last man. People who avoid suffering at all costs, take no risks, conform perfectly, and live small, comfortable lives devoid of meaning. Sound familiar? Today's society has perfected this condition. We're bombarded with messages to seek comfort, avoid pain, follow trends, and measure success through likes and approval. We've created a culture that prizes safety over authenticity, comfort over growth, and fitting in over standing out. The result? A generation drowning in existential emptiness while scrolling through carefully curated images of artificial happiness. This isn't just philosophy, it's psychology. Research consistently shows that external validation and material success fail to produce lasting happiness. A study from the Journal of Personality found that people who base their self-worth on external factors experience more stress, anxiety, and depression than those who develop internal sources of value. Another study showed that achieving externally defined goals, like wealth or fame, produces only temporary happiness spikes before returning to baseline, while pursuing authentic self-expression creates sustained well-being. The evidence is overwhelming. Following society's script doesn't work. Yet most people keep doing it, hoping the next promotion, relationship, or purchase will finally fill the void. It won't. As Nietzsche wrote, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind." When we fail to shed external expectations and discover our authentic selves, we experience a kind of living death, going through motions without truly living. So, what's the alternative? This is where Nietzsche's most powerful insight emerges. He proposed that true fulfillment comes not from following external rules, but from a radical process he called becoming who you are. This isn't about selfishness or rejecting all morality. It's about something far more revolutionary: creating yourself rather than discovering yourself. Nietzsche rejected the idea that we have fixed, innate natures waiting to be uncovered. Instead, he saw humans as dynamic, creative forces, artists whose greatest masterpiece is their own character and life. "You must become who you are" wasn't about finding some authentic self hidden within. It was about creating yourself through the choices you make, the values you affirm, and the meaning you generate in a universe that provides no inherent purpose. This process begins with what Nietzsche called the Great Liberation, freeing yourself from the prison of external approval and conventional morality. Most people spend their entire lives seeking validation from others. They make choices based on what will earn praise, avoid criticism, or maintain security. They never ask fundamental questions. Who decided these were the right goals? Why should I accept these values? What if there's another way to live? Consider how much of your own life is directed by others' expectations. Your career choice, was it truly yours, or did you follow what parents, teachers, or society deem successful? Your relationships, do they reflect your deepest values or societal norms about what's appropriate? Your daily habits, do they serve your authentic development, or are they designed to win approval? Most people, if genuinely honest with themselves, will recognize how thoroughly their lives have been shaped by external forces rather than internal direction. Nietzsche understood that breaking free from these external forces isn't easy. It requires confronting the uncomfortable reality that most truths we've been taught are arbitrary conventions, not universal facts. It means facing the terrifying freedom of creating your own values in a world without absolute meaning. And most difficult of all, it demands embracing suffering as an essential part of growth rather than something to be avoided at all costs. This is why Nietzsche contrasted what he called master morality with slave morality. Slave morality, which he saw dominating Western civilization, glorifies comfort, safety, and obedience. It treats suffering as evil and teaches people to avoid risk, conform to rules, and seek external approval. Master morality, by contrast, embraces challenge, creativity, and self-direction. It sees suffering as necessary for growth and encourages people to create their own values rather than accept inherited ones. But what does this look like in practice? How do you actually become who you are in a world designed to make you like everyone else? Nietzsche outlined a three-stage transformation he called the three metamorphoses of the spirit, using the metaphor of a camel, a lion, and a child. First comes the camel stage, where you dutifully carry the weight of tradition, education, and societal expectations. Most people never leave this stage. They accept the burdens placed on them without question, viewing their suffering as virtuous. "I'm doing what I'm supposed to do," they tell themselves, even as their authentic desires suffocate beneath external demands. The camel seeks meaning through obedience to external authorities, religious, cultural, parental, or professional. But for those who feel the stirring of authentic selfhood, the camel stage becomes unbearable. Conformity creates a growing internal pressure, the tension between who you pretend to be and who you truly are. This tension eventually forces a transformation into the lion stage. The lion represents rebellion and the courage to say no to external authorities. It roars, "I will not be who you tell me to be," and fights against all inherited values and expectations. This rebellious stage is necessary but insufficient. Many people get stuck here, defining themselves solely through opposition to conventional norms. You see this in perpetual adolescents who reject society's rules but never create anything meaningful to replace them. They know what they're against, but not what they're for. The lion tears down, but cannot build up. It creates the freedom for authentic selfhood, but cannot itself create new values. The final transformation is into the child, representing creativity, playfulness, and the ability to create new values. The child embodies what Nietzsche called a sacred yes, the affirmation of life on your own terms. This stage isn't about returning to childish naivety, but achieving a sophisticated innocence. It's the ability to create meaning and purpose without relying on external validation or absolute truths. The child doesn't ask, "What should I do?" but declares, "This is what I choose to create." Most people never reach this stage. They remain camels carrying burdens imposed by others, or lions rebelling without purpose. The child stage requires both the discipline to master yourself and the courage to create your own values without guarantees. It demands embracing what Nietzsche called amor fati, the love of fate, accepting life's suffering while transforming it into something meaningful through creative action. The central insight of Nietzsche's philosophy is that becoming who you are requires perpetual self-overcoming. Unlike the modern self-help notion that you should find yourself and then live in static authenticity, Nietzsche saw genuine selfhood as dynamic and evolving. You don't discover who you are once and for all. You continually create yourself by overcoming your current limitations. "What does not kill me makes me stronger" isn't just a motivational quote. It's Nietzsche's formula for authentic living. Strength comes from deliberately seeking challenges that force you to evolve. This is why he wrote, "The highest are those who overcome themselves." Each time you push beyond your current limitations, you create a new version of yourself. This isn't about external achievement, but internal transformation. Becoming increasingly capable of creating and expressing your own values. Consider someone trapped in a career they hate because it provides security and status. The camel accepts this burden as necessary sacrifice. The lion rebels by quitting without a plan. But the child creates a new possibility, perhaps reducing expenses to build a financial independence, developing skills for a more aligned career, or transforming their current role to better express their values. The child doesn't just reject external expectations, but creates alternatives aligned with authentic desires. This process isn't comfortable. It demands confronting what Nietzsche called the ugliest man, the parts of yourself you're afraid to acknowledge, your petty jealousies, your selfish impulses, your capacity for cruelty. Most people hide these shadow aspects behind moral pretense, claiming they're good because they follow rules. But authentic selfhood requires integrating your shadow rather than denying it. As Nietzsche wrote, "The true man wants two things, danger and play. For that reason, he wants woman as the most dangerous plaything." But wait, doesn't this philosophy lead to selfishness or even nihilism? This common misinterpretation has led many to reject Nietzsche without understanding him. He wasn't advocating moral relativism where anything goes. He was proposing something far more demanding, that each person take responsibility for creating values that affirm life rather than diminish it. Nietzsche distinguished between active nihilism and passive nihilism. Passive nihilism, the belief that nothing matters, so why bother, was exactly what he fought against. He saw it as the natural consequence of losing religious frameworks without creating new sources of meaning. Active nihilism, by contrast, embraces the absence of inherent meaning as an opportunity to create your own purpose. It doesn't say, "Nothing matters," but "Nothing matters inherently, so I must create what matters through my choices." This creation isn't arbitrary. Nietzsche proposed that truly life-affirming values must pass what he called the eternal recurrence test. Imagine being told you must relive your exact life, with all its pain and joy, endlessly for eternity. Would you choose it? This thought experiment reveals whether your values truly affirm life or secretly deny it. If you wouldn't choose to live your exact life again, you're living inauthentically, making choices that don't reflect your deepest values. Most people fail this test. They live in ways they secretly hope to escape, tolerating jobs they hate, relationships that diminish them, or habits that slowly kill them. They postpone authentic living, telling themselves someday they'll finally be themselves. But that day never comes. As Nietzsche wrote, many are stubborn in pursuit of the path they have chosen, few in pursuit of the goal. They confuse means with ends, following society's path without asking whether it leads where they truly want to go. The psychological cost of this self-betrayal is enormous. Psychiatrist Carl Jung, heavily influenced by Nietzsche, observed that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. When we avoid the necessary pain of authentic living, the discomfort of standing apart, making difficult choices, and creating our own meaning, we develop psychological symptoms instead. Anxiety, depression, addiction, and emptiness are often signals that we've betrayed our authentic path. This explains why so many outwardly successful people feel empty inside. They've achieved everything society promised would bring fulfillment, yet something essential is missing. That something is authentic self-expression, living from the inside out rather than the outside in. The tragedy isn't just individual suffering, but wasted potential. As Nietzsche lamented, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The modern world makes this struggle increasingly difficult. Social media amplifies external validation, turning likes and follows into addictive measurements of worth. Corporate cultures reward conformity while punishing authentic expression. Educational systems standardize minds rather than cultivating unique potential. Even self-improvement often means conforming more perfectly to external ideals rather than developing authentic selfhood. Meanwhile, the consequences of mass inauthenticity surround us. Political tribalism reflects people seeking external identity rather than internal conviction. Consumer culture exploits the void left by lack of authentic purpose. Mental health crises signal widespread disconnection from genuine selfhood. These aren't separate problems, but symptoms of what Nietzsche diagnosed over a century ago, the crisis of meaning that occurs when people conform rather than create themselves. So, how do you break free from this trap? The process begins with what Nietzsche called the sovereign individual, someone capable of making and keeping promises to themselves rather than being swayed by external pressures. This sovereignty requires developing what psychologists now call internal locus of control, the belief that you determine your life rather than being controlled by circumstances. The first step is radical honesty with yourself. Most people lie constantly about what they truly want, feel, and believe. They tell themselves they're happy in unfulfilling relationships, passionate about soul-crushing jobs, or content with lives that secretly bore them. Breaking this pattern requires asking uncomfortable questions. What would I do if I weren't afraid of judgment? What do I genuinely enjoy rather than what impresses others? What values do I actually hold rather than those I've been taught to accept? The answers may be disturbing. You might discover you've been living someone else's life rather than your own. You might realize many of your goals were adopted to win approval rather than express authentic desires. You might find your most deeply held beliefs were inherited rather than chosen. This realization can trigger what Nietzsche called the spirit of gravity, a profound despair at having wasted so much of your life in inauthenticity. But this despair isn't the end. It's the necessary clearing away of false selfhood that creates space for authentic becoming. As Nietzsche wrote, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind." Shedding your inauthentic skin is painful but necessary for genuine growth. The next step is deliberate experimentation with new ways of being. Nietzsche advocated what he called the gay science, a playful approach to creating yourself through action rather than abstract contemplation. Instead of endlessly analyzing what you should do, try different approaches and see what resonates with your authentic desires. This experimentation isn't random, but guided by what Nietzsche called your ruling passion, the core drives that energize rather than deplete you. For one person, this might mean leaving a prestigious career to pursue creative work that offers less security but more authentic expression. For another, it might involve transforming relationships to better reflect genuine needs rather than societal expectations. For yet another, it might require challenging inherited religious or political beliefs to develop a personal philosophy aligned with direct experience. As you experiment, pay attention to what Nietzsche called the great health, the sensation of vitality and power that comes from authentic action. When you're aligned with your true path, you experience what modern psychologists call flow, engagement so complete it transcends the separate self. Time changes quality. Energy increases rather than decreases. You feel simultaneously challenged and capable. These experiences aren't accidents, but signals of authentic becoming. Equally important is noticing what Nietzsche called decadence, the feeling of diminishment that comes from inauthentic choices. When you betray your values for external approval, compromise your integrity for security, or deny your true desires for comfort, you experience a subtle diminishment of vitality. Most people ignore these signals, rationalizing their self-betrayal as necessary sacrifice. But these feelings are valuable feedback about which choices align with your authentic becoming. This journey isn't easy. It requires constant vigilance against what Nietzsche called the spirit of revenge, the tendency to blame others for your suffering rather than taking responsibility for your choices. It demands what he called the discipline of suffering, the ability to transform pain into growth rather than seeking endless comfort. Most of all, it requires what he termed the gay science, approaching the serious business of creating yourself with playfulness rather than grim determination. The reward is what Nietzsche called the great noontide, the experience of living fully in alignment with your self-created values. This isn't happiness in the conventional sense of pleasant feelings. It's something deeper, what the Greeks called eudaimonia, a state of flourishing that comes from expressing your unique excellence. It's the profound satisfaction of creating yourself rather than following someone else's script. As we conclude, ask yourself, are you becoming who you truly are, or are you still living someone else's life? Are your choices expressions of authentic values or attempts to win approval? Do you create meaning from within, or do you seek it from external sources? Your answers reveal whether you're still carrying burdens as a camel, rebelling as a lion, or creating as a child. Nietzsche's message isn't that you should abandon all restraint or responsibility. It's that true responsibility means creating yourself rather than conforming to external expectations. As he wrote, "No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life. The choice is yours. Remain safely on the shore of conventional existence, or build your own bridge to authentic becoming." The path of authentic becoming isn't easier, but it's the only one that leads to a life truly worth living. If this message resonated with you, if you're ready to break free from the prison of external expectations and begin the journey of authentic becoming, subscribe to our channel for more insights that challenge conventional wisdom and inspire genuine transformation. Share this video with someone struggling to find their authentic path. And let us know in the comments, what external expectation have you rejected to become more authentically yourself? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Challenge yourself, rise above, become who you truly are.